be honest, we as talent acquisition professionals partake in far, far too many interviews than we probably would like. Of course, that is our job. Our job is to sit and understand who is the person opposite. Are they right for the opportunity, the team, and the company that we are representing? But what happens when everyone seems to be brilliant? Every CV looks great. Every person is telling you what you want to hear. Well, when that happens, we need to look and understand what's between the lines. What's the unknowns? What's the parts that aren't being shared? And that's what we've discussed in this episode. Here is a little bit from what Felia and I discussed.
Reading in between the line would mean, from my perspective, that you don't only count what was said, you don't only look into the words that were said, but you also take into consideration what was not said, how things were said, what the gestures were, how the person looked like maybe, everything in together. So it's everything that is not just the word, because there is a lot of truth in the things they don't say. Please think of a time where your skill to think critically was very important for your team or for your company or the project. Get me into the situation, explain the situation to me, and then tell me how did you act in the situation and what was the outcome. But if they cannot think of one thing, then there is a very high possibility that even when they used the skill, they were not aware of using it. So this is something how I try to go into depth.
A lot of you are organically doing this. The further you progress in the talent acquisition function and become better recruiters, you all automatically start trying to read in between the lines and really understanding who's right and who's wrong each position that you have. So if you're a junior listening, this is your chance to listen to somebody who's extremely experienced and who gives you clear, actionable ways in which you can embed this today. For those who are a little bit more senior, this is a chance to reflect back and understand, am I doing this organically? Do I need to do this better? And again, look for ways in which Felia automatically brings this in to her process. Thank you so much, as always, for listening, for being part of the conversation. And don't forget to follow, like, subscribe, and share into your network. Thank you so much. Welcome to Tea Time with Talent Acquisition, the podcast aimed at fostering knowledge and sharing stories within the vibrant talent acquisition community. I'm your host, Eden, and for the next hour or so, I'm going to be joined by not only an experienced, but most importantly, a passionate recruiter and HR professional who has a strong tendency toward process design for everything involved when it comes to people management and recruitment. Having worked across different industries and sectors, she finds herself now within one of the most exciting solar cell energy storage teams, where she's responsible for all things recruitment, not just with their direct hiring managers, but also in exploring how we can get the very most out of every interaction with every candidate and hiring manager. The topic that we're going to explore today is one that I've been very excited to discuss. I truly believe that this type of topic is going to help take talent teams to the next level. It's going to move us away from transactional recruiters and simply asking question answers in an interview and make us more empathetic, move us towards in-depth hiring. So when you're ready, grab your favorite tea or coffee if you prefer, and join me in welcome to today's guest, senior recruiter and HR generalist, Felia Lohrmann. So thank you so much for joining.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I appreciate, like I said, you hopping on, and the episode obviously for us today is focusing around an element of reading in between the lines of interviews, right? It's about really trying to connect those elements together, and how can we as recruiters, I guess, explore what's being said but also not said, and how we can kind of better support our hiring managers and our companies from that. But before we get into the nitty gritty, I'd like to give you the starting question, the teaser, as it were, the one that everyone gets. So from your side, Felia, what do you feel is going to make a high-performing talent team in the current market?
Yeah. So I think it's two parts. One part is you need to have an amazing, passionate team who loves their profession and the product at the best part. And then I think the other part is that you have different kind of people and with different strengths, and also maybe people who specialize in particular things, so that everyone can play out their strength, and so everything comes together as a great unit.
So obviously easier said than done in a bigger team, I imagine. But
True.
the ideal
That's
world
true.
is we have specialists that play to their strengths along the process, and we have people who are clearly passionate about being there in the first place, so wanting to have that seat in that team and want to do what's right for the team, what's right for the company.
True. Well, obviously, I have amazing people in my team right now, so they can do almost everything. But I also have people who very much specialize in one part of recruitment, and we work really greatly together.
I like that part because I think a lot of the times recruiters need to know everything, but we don't necessarily specialize in everything.
Yeah.
But you need to be able to hold your ground in, hiring manager intakes, into sourcing methodologies, coaching, however you want to see fit. But as you say, making up a high performing team, we need to have a specialist in every element. It's one person can take on one part, or one person can take on two parts, for example, and that kind of then creates more of that harmonious feel around the whole team.
Amen.
Nice. Podcast done. So,
great.
as I
Was
said at the
lovely
beginning,
to see you. Bye.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. See you next week. Nice, quick 4-minute one done. No, let's get into the meat of it. Let's get into what we want to talk about, right? So, reading in between the lines of an interview.
Yeah.
Give me the definition. What do you mean by it?
Yeah. Reading in between the line would mean, from my perspective, that you don't only count what was said. You don't only look into the words that were said, but you also take into consideration what was not said, how things were said, what the gestures were, how the person looked like, maybe everything in together. So it's everything that is not just the word. Yeah.
Okay. Why should that even matter in the first place? If we're talking about interviews, we just want to get the cold hard facts, right? So why is it important for us to even take note of how they're saying things, what they're not saying, how they're structuring things? Why should I care?
Because there is a lot of truth in the things they don't say. So to clarify, I mean the candidates. Maybe let's do an example to clarify why it's important. So let's take a manager position, and you will need someone who's very eloquent, who can talk greatly, who can manage a team. Maybe it has to be someone who can also talk publicly, for example. And when you just go over the CV, for example, during the interview, you can hear what they're saying, but I mean, most of the time it's exactly the same what they've written down, and you already, as a good recruiter, have read through it. So it's like just a double kind of thing. But what I really want to have a look at is, how do they express themselves? When I challenge them to tell me something out of their lives, and this role is about eloquency. I hope this is an English word.
Eloquency. I'm going to Google it. Bear with me.
Okay, no. So
eloquency.
If someone is eloquent, so someone can express themselves properly.
Eloquence. Yes, eloquency. Unfortunately, no. But I mean, we can make up a word. Eloquency.
It's now hashtag
picture of your face in a dictionary.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So I want to have someone who can talk properly. Then I really need to hear how this person is saying all those things, because I already have read what they're saying, but I want to hear what expressions do they use. The most exciting thing I ever learned is, for example, not to say, are you sure? But the more eloquent way to say it would be, are you certain? So this was like one of the first words when I started learning business English. This was one of the first words I learned to exchange in my vocabulary. So I can get taken more seriously by English candidates. So they understand that,
Then,
that
are you
I
certain?
take this very seriously. I am very certain. Thank you.
I don't think anyone's ever said to me, "Are you certain?"
Are you
I think.
sure? Oh shit!
There
I
we
learned the
go.
wrong thing.
just fell straight back into that. So okay, so you're looking at. So we've got a resume, right? So
yeah,
object number one, and obviously we've got the interview. So in the interview, you're trying to see how are they, and again, taking that manager example, how are they projecting the eloquency, right? Or how eloquent are they? It's rather the better phrase for it. But how are they? And because that's a requirement for the management position, right? So you can see more, you can hear more than what the resume is teaching you, right?
Exactly. And also, the way they present themselves, are they super nervous, or can they say this with confidence? Because I'm just a stranger, and if they feel super, what is the word, the opposite of confident?
Lacking confidence. Shy.
Okay, let's say that.
Could also be there. But shy also has a deep.
Yeah. But let's say that if they're lacking confidence when meeting a strange person who just want to get to know you, how will they react when they will talk with higher management? So this is the one thing.
Okay.
And I also look at how they're treating me, because I'm just a recruiter. When they will become managers in our company, how will they treat their team? If they treat me poorly, I can imagine how they would treat their own team. So this is also part of that whole thing. So it all comes down to the No
I was going to say, do you feel that changes on the roles? Because I'm thinking now, I had an example literally just today where it wasn't a management role, and I can share the example. The person doubt will ever work out it was them. I don't know when I'm recording. So as an individual contributor, and I knew within the first 5 minutes it was not going to work. Just the way they were talking to me, and I know the hiring manager, and I know the team and the culture they're creating. It just was not on the same level. And I'm sitting there thinking, coming across extremely rude, like really rude, considering I'm someone who's helping you for absolutely free of charge to you. And it just, then I just felt, okay, you could have had a bad day, fair enough. But now it's going to sound horrible because obviously we kind of bias, right? But now there's bias to not want to speak to that individual again, to not want to put them forward for other positions. So do you think it's just, we're kind of talking about that example there about how they treat us?
So I want to say two things about that. The very first thing is a personal thing. I'm a person, I can get along with a lot of kind of personalities. I don't care if you're shy, I don't care if you're happy or sad or whatever. I can cope with every personality out there. But being arrogant is the one trait that I'm always blocking from coming into a company. Because in my opinion, being arrogant is a choice. You can grow in confidence, but that you play out your arrogancy is not something that I appreciate, and that the management is not appreciating, and I think no one should appreciate this. That
was my thought process, right? So I'm sitting there thinking, I know team. I know you're not going to fit into that team, and it's not about culture fit, but it's culture add. And are you going to add anything or subtract? And the team's really small, and you put a person who's like that into that sort of team, it's a catastrophe waiting to happen.
And
but
also
I read between the lines and drew it. No, exactly.
And I think this is also showing, and this is like reading between the lines while reading in between the lines. because
it starts
you
getting
found
kind of
out
Inception level.
yeah, but it's true. So you find out this person is arrogant because you felt it, and you realized it in the way they were treating you as a recruiter. Then you think of the team, and when you think of the team, you think of the level of working with each other within the whole company. And then you think, okay, if you make this choice to be this way to a recruiter, what other choices do you make? Because this isn't even smart. There's like a German saying, I cannot translate it properly, but when you come into the office, the person who does the entrance is the very first person you have to be polite to, because it's the person who opens you the door. And this is the same with recruitment. The recruiter is the first door opener for you. So it's not even just arrogant or not cool. It's even a little bit stupid, because this is the first person who decides whether you go to the next round or not. So it's both. So like, I think we agree on that part. Regarding how it's shifting right now, I think so I've been in recruiting since 2017, and I had the feeling that it all somehow depends on how the market is right now. So, for example, before the pandemic, we had a market that was based on the applicants. I mean, applicants could mostly choose a well-developed, like I'm talking about a good applicant in that way, with a good CV and everything nicely made. So those kind of people would find a good job quite easily. They could choose. So I think the rudeness was a little bit higher back then. And what I'm experiencing now is that people are more in the need to find a job. It gets a little bit more polite. Now, I mean, right now we see a lot of companies struggling with the economy right now. And I think we shifted from rude, being needy, to being desperate. And I think being desperate is also something that does not bring out the best in people. So I think being a recruiter in those times right now, being empathic, empathic. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Your English is better than my German, so you're winning. So it's absolutely fine.
I'm so sorry.
Nobody wants to listen to me try and do this in German, and I mean nobody.
Well,
we won't get very far.
I would love to hear it, so I feel a little better. But
Nicht so good.
Nicht so good.
That's about it. That's all I can do. Thank you.
That's enough. Thank you. No worries. No, but I think being empathic right now as a recruiter and reading between the lines right now is even more important than it was before. Because if people become desperate, they tend to tell you a little bit more, but maybe they exaggerate things or putting things down and say like, oh, this was not so major, but you can see in their expression and in the way they talk about other things, oh, this was a major thing. Oh shit, okay. And so you write that down.
If it's cool for you, let's dive into this part. Because what I'm thinking is, obviously those who are listening, I'm hoping they're about to get your notepad and pen out, because what I want to try and do is really uncover from your own experience the types of things you're looking at. Right. I know you said briefly at the beginning, the body language. Try and give some more specific examples, because right now, I think it's the hardest to be a recruiter. I genuinely think it is harder now than it's ever been. Not because there's not enough recruitment jobs out there. Right. I'm talking about the ones who are employed today. I think is incredibly challenging. There's not enough time to do your job. You've got more jobs to do, usually, with less time. And we've got way more inbound applicants than ever before. Right. So reading between CVs, reading between the lines of that, reading between the lines of the interviews, it's so important to make sure that we protect the hiring manager's time. And I think that's the number one goal of the recruiters. Yes, make placements. Then after that, we have to protect people's time. That's how I view it. You can send 3 CVs and make a placement and not send 20 CVs to make the placement. You're excelling. That's your job, right? You take time. So that's what we want to try and cover. But you can only do that when you can effectively, quote unquote, read between the lines. So you've got an influx of applicants. Start of the CV. What are the types of things that you're kind of not rejecting people over, but what are you exploring, or what kind of goes off in your head when you're reading a CV as possible areas to explore further based on what you know as a recruiter?
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me think. I think one of the things I like to say a challenge would be if a person not only changed the employer a lot, but also changed the profession a lot. This is something where I'm looking into. Because, I mean, some of them are unicorns. They can excel at everything and they're amazing at everything. This is, by the way, the only moment I pull up resumes because I really would like to know if they excel in everything. Normally, I don't look at them a lot, to be honest.
I don't.
But that's
in an interview, I rarely have it.
Yeah, but that's the moment where I take them because I really want to know: are you a unicorn? Are you amazing at everything, or are you uncertain? There was this word again. Or are you uncertain about what you want to do with your life? Will you leave our company in 1 year again? And we really need to know that because I don't want to recruit for this position in half a year again.
So you're viewing not necessarily the movement of jobs, but you're assessing the switching careers as
yes,
it's not a no, but it's a possibility that you don't know what you potentially want, and as a result, you don't know if we're potentially the company for you either. So that's kind of a question mark that you're gonna explore with that person.
I mean, obviously, and this is why it's so hard, there are people out there who can do all those things. One example, my husband is recruiting for his company right now, and it's, by the way, his
is he looking for a recruiter?
No, he's not.
I'm joking. I'm joking. I've got to plug myself, haven't I?
Yes, I have fun. No, he's recruiting, by the way, for the first time. I'm so proud of him. Yes, he's doing a great job. But he told me about this one lady, and she has done so many, so different kind of jobs. But then, and this is very interesting, she had a cover letter. And like the resumes, I'm not that girl who reads a lot of cover letters, to be honest. Because if there are so many CVs, this is like something, yeah. But in this case, this is very interesting because she was able to explain her career path in just a one-sider. It was a normal motivation letter, just one side. And it was so clear, so particular that he said, yes, I want to give her a chance. I want to get to know her. And in the interview, he told me she was so clear. She was very confident in that she wants to have this kind of job now. And she could also explain that this is the job that was described in this job description that she always wanted. And when she read that, she felt amazing. She felt like, yes, that's the job. And in this interview, my husband told me he felt like she was genuine. She was really passionate. Yeah. And this is what I mean on a positive note. We were talking about bad notes. Let's talk about the positive note, because if someone is so passionate and can bring that to you over camera even, or in person, then I really want to have that person. I really want to have that candidate as my employee, because this person will be amazing. And then she can also do all these other things that maybe can come in handy for me as the owner of this company, maybe. So this was like a very positive example. I also had that in my past career when I worked for an art company. I had that there several times too, but this was like the most recent one I heard of. So I wanted to share that. So
As you were
this could
saying
be an
that, I actually have
example
a
of,
pretty
yeah.
similar. Yeah, I had a similar one. So I had I knew a CTO. I hired him as a CTO, and he had a really clear management path. In like you could
Mm-hmm.
tell, crystal clear. Developer, senior, lead, head, CTO. Hired him as a
Very
CTO, and then he
straightforward.
called
Yeah.
me.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, he called me about 2 years after, and said, "I'm changing." I was like, "Well, didn't see that coming. Like, why?" And he went, "I want to go back into development." But he started to really struggle into finding a job because of his past career.
Mm-hmm.
People are looking going, you're too senior, like you want to go back into management again, we can't offer you that. And he found one
Mm-hmm.
company that he absolutely loved, and he wrote, and I don't read cover letters either, to be honest with you, very rarely.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he advocates for them. And he basically said, I wrote a cover letter, applied for two companies, both got cover letters, and he got the offer at one that he wanted. And in that cover letter, he explained very clearly, this is where I am, this is why I'm applying for your job. And he then matched it to his personal interests. And it kind of gave that sense to the hiring manager again that, okay, there's no competition because you're a CTO applying for a senior position to another CTO. It can kind of flare up a little bit of competition and ego and thinking, okay, is he just going to come for my job? But a cover letter was able to cut through that and say, this is why I'm relevant there. And the reading between the lines is the CTO sat there and went, if I hadn't read that cover letter, I would have rejected him, which is mental when you
Yeah.
think about it.
So to answer your question, like in regards to it's the hardest time for recruiters, I think we need to start reading cover letters a little bit more.
Well, clearly,
Especially
there's two
like,
examples right there.
here we go. We just came to the conclusion live on this podcast. Amazing. No, but in
If
those
anyone's listening
times,
to this
like,
in 2025, do it.
yeah, but right now, it's the time to listen to people's stories, especially with the pandemic. It's very important to listen to what they have experienced, and this is another part of this reading between the lines kind of thing. It's not only in interviews. When you hear a story of someone who had to go through, let's say, two layoffs, had to have maybe challenges at home, and after, let's say, 5 years of struggling, they finally found the strength to maybe change the employer. You can take it as it is and just say, okay, you applied, amazing, let's see your CV. Maybe yes, maybe not, I don't know. But what is very interesting is what soft skills you've learned in the time you had to experience those bad things. For example, if you're in a company that wants to do maybe like a huge change in the structure, or in how they, I don't know, want to do things, then you need a person who can handle change. And not only from a management part. I'm not talking only about team leads or something like that. I'm talking about the mental strength to handle changes and still be able to do your job. And the best people who can do that are the people who experienced that and came stronger out of those situations than they have been before. So that is why we have to listen more to these stories and to have a look behind the person who's in front of the screen. And you can
I think that's active listening though, right?
What?
I'm down to active listening. I realized as I said that I didn't do active listening because I interrupted you. So I scold myself for not doing the thing I literally just said. And yes, anyone who's listening who's just about to call me out on it, I called myself out on it, so you're welcome. But that is our job, right? It's to stop talking, Eden, and let Felia finish what she was going to say.
No, it's okay, Eden. You're the one who
Thanks.
is allowed to interrupt me.
I'm not allowed. I think the element of reading in between the lines, I think everyone probably understands the importance really. And I know I was quite blunt at the beginning, say why is it important? I think we all really truthfully understand, and even to some degree probably already do this, subconsciously.
Mm,
Maybe the lesser experienced of us at the moment are kind of a bit more just black and white, surface level, but the more experienced are probably
mm,
sitting going, okay, what's the why? I always like that. Is like there's a reason. There's always a reason to everything. Change job, ask for a certain salary, choose a technology, switch your technology, change your country,
yeah,
whatever. I'm
yeah.
inquisitive. I like knowing. Plus, as an external, it helps me. I need to know everything to help both sides better. I'm like the monopoly man. If I don't have the monopoly of information, then I'm useless, right? But I think internal teams should do that. In my opinion, those first fact-finding calls should be about, okay, we're going to need to start a company, but I need to know everything there is to you as a person, or as much as I can get. And I need to
Mm,
hold that information. So when the hiring manager says, what's this situation? What's this situation? You know it straight away. That's where, again, coming back to help push us forward as an industry. That's that. And then when we're
mm,
just fact finders, we become obsolete. You don't need a fact finder. You need a
yeah,
consultant.
yeah.
And that's what we need to become, business partners. From your experience, Felia, what are some effective strategies that you've deployed that allows you to move from that surface level information to
Mm,
explore someone's deeper
yeah.
motivations, those deeper
Mm,
values,
mm,
those elements that a CV will not tell you, but
no, no.
it's important and critical?
Yeah. So, for example, I'm always asking situative questions. So I'm not asking. Let's say, I don't know. Pick a soft skill. You choose. Just pick one soft skill.
Critical thinking.
Okay. So you're now my applicant, and you want to have this job, obviously. And I would
Obviously.
ask you, hey, what about critical thinking? Do you think you can do that? What would you say?
Yes. No, no. I mean,
But there you go. But there you go. You
yeah.
would
I mean,
you
it's
would
it's a
give like a
it's a
yes.
very closed question. Yeah, it's a
Exactly.
closed question.
Exactly. So with those kind of questions, you cannot get a very truthful answer and you cannot go through. If I ask you, um, on a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate your ability to think critically?
7.
7. Okay, can you explain me? And then you would explain yourself.
Yeah. And by the way,
This
mine
is.
would be 7. I think if you go too high, from my own experience, if
Mhm,
you go too high, they're like,
mhm,
go too low. But 7 for me is like 7 to 8. It's a
mhm,
skill that I actually think I personally can work on personally anyway. So that's why I went for the 7.
mhm. Okay,
But it's an
okay.
honest
So
answer.
thank you very much. Very good.
That's all right.
So you would give me an answer that would lead me to getting to know you a little bit more. And with this kind of
Mhm.
question, I can also see your personality, because if you wouldn't have explained that, I would have said, "Oh, you took the 7 because you think you're amazing, but you're unsure if I am happy if you would give me the answer 10." So this is also reading between the lines, you see. So I see what kind of personality you are in regards to um, how you sell yourself. But this is not even close to what I want to know, because you can say everything right now. You can say 7, you can say 8, you can say 5, whatever. It does not have to be the truth as long as you have an explanation for it. So this is good, but it's not the best. The best way for me personally, the best way to understand that, please think of a time where your skill to think critically was very important for your team or for your company or the project. It depends on what position you would be applying for. Let's say for a project, let's say you're a project manager. So where the skill was very important for the project, please think of one example. Get me into the situation, explain the situation to me, and then tell me, how did you act in this situation and what was the outcome. And now I let the applicant think a little bit, and then they will tell me the situation. And in that moment, you can see if this is really something, if this is a skill they had to use before. Because if they cannot think of one immediate thing for, I don't care if it's like 5 or 10 seconds they have to think about it, it's very okay for me. But if they cannot think of one thing, then there's a very high possibility that even when they used the skill, they were not aware of using it. So this is something how I try to go into depth. I want to know the situation. I want you to remember things. And I want you to tell me a little bit about it. Now you can say there are juniors out there. How do you, like, juniors have maybe a maximum of 1 or 2 years of experience. If they do this, I come up with a situation. So I'm just saying, okay, imagine this and that, this happens. And then I not even put into my mouth the word critical thinking. I just will come up with a situation where they have to think critical. And then I would give them the situation. I would explain everything briefly to them. And then I would ask them, how would you react in this situation? How would you go on? How would you prioritize your tasks? And so on and so forth. So this is the way I try to go in there.
So you're leaning into situational questions.
Yeah.
But there's a fine line, right, between what we do in talent roles, gather the hard facts, make sure they're right for the role, and then obviously have to evaluate skills and evaluate the bits, read between the lines part. But we only have, some do it in half an hour. I'll be honest with you, I think half hour is far too short. An hour is, in my opinion, where the sweet spot is. But there's that balance, right, where we need to probe deep.
Definitely.
We need to maintain a respectful and comfortable atmosphere as well, because really this is, especially as a headhunted candidate. Oh, I hate that phrase. Just headhunt. Sounds like it just sounds awful.
I was an headhunter myself. It's okay.
Yeah, literally. Even though that's what I do. I've never said the word out loud in ages. Anyways, I've actually freaked myself out a little bit from it. But you get what I mean. But so obviously at the moment we have to sell to them and come in too hard. So how do you balance that? How do you know how many of these situational questions to deliver? Who to deliver them to? There's, again, for the listeners, how are you coming up with the structure of between person A to person B?
There are two parts of it. The one part is the management and the process you make regarding the recruitment. So if you have the obligation to only use 30 minutes in the first screening interview and management says you have to you can only have those 30 minutes, you have to make the best out of it. You obviously, as a team lead in recruitment, should always try to get more than 30 minutes, at least 45, I say. For me, 45 is ideal in a first interview, because in that time I can collect all the important information, and but the candidate does not, I would say, waste their time, even if we don't take them. So yeah, that's kind of what I always like about it. But yeah, first it's the management. In bigger companies, it's head of HR, head of recruitment, whatever. And in smaller companies, it can be the management, the C-level directly. So this is the first part. And the other part is the hiring manager. So when you have your briefing with your hiring manager, and if you don't have briefings with your hiring manager yet, you should start doing that, because with those hiring managers, you can discuss which skills, not the hard skills, this is what they are there for, but what soft skills are so important that you need to know how strong they are before you get to know them. And when you phrase it like that, I think every good manager should know what they need to answer. Sorry, but that's the way I would put it. So you have the management, you have the hiring manager, and you as a recruiter obviously need to stand in for your profession and tell people if something is not possible. You have to be honest to your hiring manager as well. So if you ask them that and they tell you 6 soft skills you have to ask, then then this is like this whole backflip. So then you have to go to your head off, then you have to go to the management to ask them if you can have more time, then you need more recruiters. So this has to be sorted out, please, before you start recruiting. Yeah.
I guess you could also break it down with, okay, out of those 6, what's mandatory, what's nice to have? Okay, all 6 are mandatory. Okay, well, what rank them? You know, they can't all 6 be of equal importance. So rank them for me, and then I'll find out. Or split. What do you deem the most important? Top 2, top 3. I ask them, and then you ask the next 3, and I guess you can coach them on what you can do, or you can shadow them, and then you can obviously take the answers from them.
Yeah.
I want to wrap up, if it's cool, with just one final point. Because again, I know the time flies, isn't it? The whole process of reading in between the lines, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think you used the phrase desperate, and then you also used the phrase about genuine, obviously in your husband's example with the lady.
Yeah.
What techniques can we adopt as talent teams that will allow us to understand a candidate's true potential or fabrication from what they're telling us?
So, I mean, if you're asking for tips and tricks, I can share some. So, for example, okay. So, what I'm really looking into is someone is saying all the things over and over and over again. So, for example, if a person is starting their phrases every time the same way, they answered all your other questions, then you know they have like a book full of answers, and this is not genuine. This is not that comes from their heart. This is not something that comes directly to you. So that would be one of those things. It could be also an indicator for being shy or nervous. So tip 2, you should, or trick number 2, you should always ask the person how they're feeling, and you should encourage them to be honest with you, because you need to know in what kind of situation this person is in right now, so you can understand what their feelings, what their expressions really mean. You know, and my top tip, if someone is really, really nervous, ask them like something super easy, so they can feel smart and confident, and they can have a feeling like, yeah, I'm doing great. It does not have to do anything with you or with the job. It does not matter. Just give them a question where they feel comfortable. This is super important. So this is how I do it in that way. Then I think what else? If a person is in an interview, so a candidate, I always say person. We're all person. If the candidate in the interview is trying to not really answer your questions. So, for example, if they have an agenda to put up front certain skills they have, and they're not really answering your question, you should challenge that in the interview. You should not only write down they were not answering my question. You should lead them back to the question. You should keep that, even if you feel like you're repeating yourself. Give them the chance to go back, because some of them, especially the older candidates, let me tell you, the older candidates were trained to do that by their parents, by older company members, whatever. Some of the older candidates are trained to give you those kind of answers. So lead them back. And especially when you see like they're nervous when they have to be honest, give them questions about older times. This always helps. And then they feel better. And with those people, they love to answer those kind of questions I just told you about the situation. Normally, like when you structure your interview, you normally start with a certain thing. You ask for things in the CV, and then you go to that question standard. Change this up. In this moment where you feel like this person cannot adjust to the way you're asking, you as the recruiter need to adjust. You need to adjust your questions. And then, you know what? It does not matter. Then you start with that in the beginning. And then one last thing, you are a salesperson. Kind of. You're selling the company to the candidate.
Kind of. We are absolutely salespeople.
Kind of. Yeah, but the thing is, you need to act like a salesperson as well. It does not mean that you have to take all the candidates you're talking to. Definitely not. That's why it's just kind of a salesperson. But if you like a candidate, you really want them to go further with you in the process. What could be worse than you as a recruiter being in the interview, liking someone, thinking that's a perfect match, and then they're like, no, I don't want that. I'm so sorry. So please adjust you and understand what kind of person is in front of you. If you have a person that is all about numbers, that is all about facts, don't bore them with the benefits and all the kind of things that are happening. This person wants facts and numbers. So adjust your language to that person. And maybe you can, in the way they're talking, and I think you and me, we were talking about this the whole time. It's all about how they talk. And for example, if an accountant talks like me, I'm suspicious. I'm suspicious because they need to be super, super, super focused. So I want them to have a certain personality and I want them to talk a certain way. This does not mean that a person like me could do that. Don't get me wrong, please. But that's okay. Just figure it out and try to adjust your language as well so the other person feels comfortable. If you have someone in front of you who's super chatty, you need to bring that person to the topic that you're talking to. But that's also okay. If this is a chatty job, then that's also okay. So what I want to say is you need to adjust your language to your candidate in regards to, or in order to bring the truth out of that person, because only when your candidate feels comfortable with you, they will go into depth with their experience, with their feelings, with what you just said, what we all want to know. And then you can read between the lines, because then you have the true candidate in front of you when they feel comfortable. And then you can understand what they were saying, what they're meaning. Yeah. That's it.
I'd say there's a really good episode that we've recorded, a lady called Megan Murphy, where her topic was about making candidates feel comfortable in interviews. So if we could merge that and then bring in the elements you've just shared there, then obviously it's going to put hopefully people on the right path. But Felia, I really appreciate you taking the time and for going through all that. And if anyone's watching this, I apologize, because as the last 5 minutes, I've been having a coughing fit. So I've had to constantly keep muting myself. So I apologize if anyone's watching, and obviously for yourself, Felia, is super off-putting. And if you're listening, you can just ignore the last 10 seconds. I didn't cough once. But no, because I really do appreciate you spending some time. If people want to pick up the conversation, they want to get to know you a little bit better, they want to explore this further, where's the best place that they can find you?
LinkedIn, of course.
Nice.
It's just Felia Lohrmann.
Always. I will put it into the footnotes of this. I'm waiting for one person to tell me something completely different. It is quite an interesting thing, though. When I say, where's the best place to find it? Everyone says LinkedIn. Maybe we're hermits a little bit. Maybe we need to create a different LinkedIn. No one's said Zing. Obvious reasons on that one, maybe. Sorry, Zing.
Oh, Xing is dead. Next top tip for all the candidates out there: don't go to Xing. Go to LinkedIn. Please do.
I was expecting a few more Twitters or X's when I asked this question to people. And everyone's on LinkedIn, but like I said, I'll put your LinkedIn onto the footnotes so people can pick up the conversation. But again, thank you so much for taking the time.
No worries. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.